Okay, I'm going to continue with my story, how I got into being obsessed with the Bible. Well, we were living in Fort Lauderdale at the time, and like I said, we were getting out of the hippie generation. We just decided that wasn't the place for us. So we looked for a church, and we found one. It was on the radio. These are TV preachers. This church was a worldwide church, and we heard the voice of this one guy that we were attracted by what he said. So we went up and, we had to go like 45 miles to find this church. And when we got there, we were so impressed because they never passed the collection plate. And we thought, wow, what kind of church is this? Every other church passed the collection plate. And they didn't. And we thought, wow, this is the church for us. So anyway, we went to a big meeting down in Miami this next time. And of course, we come out of that church into the parking lot, to have a cigarette. And there wasn't anybody else out there. And we thought, don't tell me these people in this church don't smoke. Jeez, we said, now darn, And so from Miami to Fort Lauderdale, my husband and I both threw out our packs of cigarettes. And we never picked it up again for a good 5 years. But anyhow, we didn't want to be hypocrites in that church. So we threw out our cigarettes. And we stayed strong. And anyway, we wanted to get out of Fort Lauderdale because the drugs were getting so bad in the 70s, and our kids were just getting up to the teenage years. Our oldest boy was probably 11 or 12, and my girl was probably about 9. Anyway, we decided we had to get out of Fort Lauderdale, so we decided to move to Texas. Because the church headquarters was where we went. And it was a little tiny town, population 1,002 in Texas. And this church had this big grounds and beautiful buildings, and the grass was greener there. They planted ryegrass, and it was the greenest grass we ever saw. We knew this was God's church. I mean, we had no doubt. So anyway, we had to get a job. We both ended up working for the church. And then the church split up. And instead of going with the Father, we went with the Son. And they told us if you follow the Son, which was, Father and Son were preachers. And they split. So we followed the Son. Well, they had spies that went and saw everybody that went and met with this guy, the young preacher. And so everybody that went got excommunicated from the church. Well, this was the kind of church where everything you did was focused around the church. I mean, our kids did activities with the church, and we went to church on the Sabbath. We went to church on Wednesday. I mean, everything was around the church. And all the people that we associated with were in the church. And unbeknownst to us when we moved there, we didn't know that everybody else around us hated that church. Church of Christ people hated them. Baptist church hated them. Mormons hated them. Every church around that area that was a regular church hated the worldwide church. So anyway, when we got excommunicated, then all the people in the church would no longer speak with us. These were people that we spent Sabbath dinners every week with, and all activities with. So, and then our kids were in this school where the school kids, they hung around just with the ones in the church, because this church didn't keep Christmas, didn't keep Easter. Our kids couldn't go to sports because it was Friday night till Saturday morning. We were Sabbath keepers now. And they had to leave school for certain holy days in this church, which was frowned upon. And anyway, when we got excommunicated, our kids had to suffer too, because the kids in the church no longer could associate with them. So they were left with the people outside the church who uh, didn't like the people in the church. So anyway, two of our children did okay, but the one kid suffered. He just suffered through school. We let him graduate early. He graduated at age 16, and we helped him graduate and get out of there. It was just too painful of a place to be for him. So anyway, when we finally, so I went to work for the Sun. Okay, I don't know how long this is. I went and I worked for the Sun, and I was in the office, and I was reading mail, counting money, and filling out requests for booklets and things like that. That's what I did. But this one time I went out on a lunch hour, and when I came back, their offices were on the second floor of a regular building. Regular people were downstairs, but they had the whole second floor. And I accidentally, when I came back from my lunch break, I went into the bottom bathroom. I'd never been in it before. And all the bigwigs, wives, were in there smoking. I was appalled. I mean, we had quit smoking, and here the bigwigs, I'm talking about all the sidekicks of the preacher, all their wives that we thought were so whatever, high up there, they were all down there smoking. And I walked in on them. And anyway, that's when I decided, well, that's not exactly when I decided to leave, but I was getting mail from all over the world. And hundreds and hundreds of letters back then, and this was in the early 80s. I was getting hundreds of letters of people inquiring about the sacred name. Well, I never heard about the sacred name before. And it's the Tetragrammaton. You need to look it up and find out what it is. So I went to the high-ups in the church, and I said, hey, I'm getting all these letters. They want to know about the sacred name, and why aren't we using it? You know, the sacred name was the God of the Hebrews. The sacred name was the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Moses, and Daniel, and David, and all the other prophets. And so they wouldn't hear it. So I thought, well, I didn't say anything then. But a little while later, I realized that when every day they'd come in to me and the other guy that was counting money and reading letters. They came into us one day, always at 11:30, what the count and the amount was. And then I realized, wow, that's all they're interested is the count and the amount. They don't care what they're saying or teaching. All they want is the count and the amount. And oh, I didn't tell you. From the very beginning, like I told you, they didn't send a collection plate around. But once they got us in there, here there was a first tithe, a 10%. Then there was a second tithe for the widows. Then there was a third tithe that you're supposed to save up for the Feast of Tabernacle. And that tithe goes to all the donations you give during this 1 week of whatever they did. So actually, it cost more to be in that church than any of the other churches because they wanted 10%, then 20%, and then 10 more percent, which was supposed to be ours, but really ended up being theirs. Anyway, I finally left that church. I couldn't pick up the Bible for 6 months. I had messed my kids up so bad. I had taken away everything that they used to know and changed it all around and went to the beliefs of this church thinking I was, doing the right thing and everything. And then they were screwed up, and I thought I couldn't pick up a Bible. Then 6 months later, I finally picked it up, and I said, I'm going to find out the truth of the matter no matter what. And for a year, I would not pick up any man's writings at all. I would not read anything from anybody. I read that Bible from front cover to back cover over and over and over again. I'd read till I couldn't keep my eyes open at night. Then I'd dream scripture, and then when I'd wake up, I'd read more. And just every single day, I just couldn't get enough of it. And finally, I started tying scriptures together. I mean, I was flipping pages so fast, and my adrenaline was going. I mean, it was the most exciting time of my life, to tell you the truth, that one particular year. And so finally, after a year, when I found out that the whole duty of man, it took me a whole year to decide the bottom line. The whole duty of man is to love God with all your heart and all your soul, and your neighbor as yourself, and to keep his holy commandments. That's the bottom line. That is what we have to do. And it took me a whole year of flipping those pages to come to that simple conclusion. So anyway, that's why I became so obsessed. But then I decided, well, I'm going to read Nan's work, but I'm not going to read anything printed in the 18 or 1900s. No way. I'm going back to the 17, 16, 1500s. I'm going to read what the people of old used to say. And that's where the book Pilgrim's Progress comes in, and there's a lot of spiritual books written in the old days that they didn't burn, that are still out there. If you want to know the history of religion, read Fox's Book of Martyrs, Fox', Book of Martyrs, Martyrs. That book will tell you who's in control and who has always been in control since the death of the Messiah, and that's Babylon. And you know who heads Babylon. I don't have to tell you. But anyway, this book is the history of the biggest church in the world and its leaders. And this book is really, it's hard to read. I mean, it really just makes you sick by the time you're done with it. But it's the diaries of people that lived through all the persecutions. And they put down, it was always the faithful, the pious, those who worship God in spirit and truth. It was always those kind of people that were killed. Not other people, just people that didn't follow the dictates of the main religion going. So those are the ones that have been killed throughout centuries, and they're still being killed. And anyway, that book. And then I found another one that I just loved. I went to the library and I found this man lived in the 1600s, 1650. And his book, Compendium of Swedenborg, Emanuel Swedenborg, I learned more from him than anybody else. And it's not that I stayed with him. I'd read his book, and I ordered his books. In fact, oh my gosh, I'm running out of time. I sent to their main headquarters that printed this book. It was in the compendium from the library. And I wrote to them and I said, oh, I just love his works. I said, they've opened up my mind so well, and I just love to have all the volumes of the books, but I couldn't afford it. I mean, we were just living from hand to mouth at that time. And anyway, wouldn't you know, a week later I got this big box of 30 volumes of hardback books. And they let me, it took me 2 years to pay them off. And but they let me pay off those books. And I was so impressed with them. And I have read those books over and over and over again to this very day. I still read those books. Now, I haven't always stuck with those books. I went with other spiritual writers, but nobody from the 1900s. I won't. They do their books for money. Those people back then, they did their books because they wanted to get the truth out. So that's why I had to go back centuries to read and find books. Anyway, I'm going to close for now because this is almost up to 15 minutes. But I just wanted to tell you why I got to where I am today and why I want to let you know what you're here for. You know, you're not here to make money and be rich and have every kind of material thing you could think of. That's not why we're here. We're here. Read the words in red. Look up on the King James search engine. Just prepare. Just look up that one word, prepare, in the New Testament, and you'll find out why we're here. Okay, I'm going to close for now. Good to talk to you, honeys. I hope you'll be back. because I have plenty more to say. Bye-bye. And have a wonderful day, too. Okay, bye-bye.